Hello, how are you? I hope you're good. Welcome to this very autumnal, very cozy, very brief recommendation video of autumnal reads. I am basing this surely on the vibes. Some of them are a bit more legit, but a lot of them just like the vibes. As it is getting colder outside for most of us, we obviously want to cozy up, and obviously the autumn essentials include a lot of drinks, a lot of cozy mugs, a bunch of sweaters, of which I definitely don't have a shortage of, and will for the foreseeable future be absolutely living in. However, the look is really not complete until you get to a good read. So I thought I will come here with my list of 20 books I think in some way are perfect for autumn reading. If you're new here, hi, I'm G. It's very nice to meet you. So all of the books that I'm going to mention today are books that I have read, but I do have a playlist of your recommendations, and I am working on a Dark Academia one just in time for the darker season. But if you are looking for books that are tried and tested by other readers, and the other readers are recommending you some thrillers or horrors, which all, fall into the autumnal vibes, I will leave those videos down below because there are some great recommendations. The hive knows best. The hive knows best. Anyway, without further ado, I have separated this into handy little categories. Some of them probably have like one book, but let's go. The first category is thrilling mysteries. For a YA one, and one that I really couldn't put down, I do not know if this is set in autumn. I think it spans through a year. I really can't recommend Good Girl's Guide to Murder enough. It's just so hard to put down. It's so easy to read at the same time, and I think that is why it works so well. It's perfect if you really just want to get into something for a weekend, for example, and get through it in that same weekend. And it does have some chilling moments, but as it is YA, it's really not that intense at all. I would say, obviously, for any of the books, if you are sensitive to any type of themes, please look out for content warnings online. But A Good Girl's Guide to Murder follows our main character, who is quite savvy, very into true crime, which is also just very autumnal in itself. And she picks up one of the cold cases from her town of a girl's murder that was technically solved, but she just doesn't feel like it adds up. And she digs it all back up and tries to solve it herself. Ethically, we're just not gonna look into, how logistically that would work, but it's a good read. It's a very fun, quick and unputdownable mystery. Thriller? I don't know. There's a reason I have merged this category. And for an adult one, I have gone with In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. So as opposed to a school setting, we have a university one, and it is a split time perspective. We follow them now, where they are in their 30s or 40s, I can't remember which one, and back to when everything happened in their friend group at university, so they are in their 20s. We follow the story through multiple perspectives, and we're trying to see who was actually responsible for a particular murder that occurred in their friend group. But whilst we're trying to recover that, we also dig up a lot of other dirt. Everyone is dislikable here, so if you like reads where you're really not supposed to like most of the characters, this is gonna be a great pick for you. Adult fantasy. If you want a short story collection with chilling monsters and various things, the Witcher series, which starts with the Last Wish book, is great. I'm sure you already know what this is about, but maybe you didn't consider picking it up this autumn, and maybe you should, because it's definitely grim. Like every story, I imagine being set in a dark evening or a dark gloomy day. It has the gloom. It provides the gloom. Speaking of gloom, but adding a little bit of humor and a little bit of charm, we have Lies of Locke Lamora. This one is a tiny bit bigger. I don't know about you, but summer seems in general more set for quick adventures, and in autumn, when everything slows down and the nature starts dying, you just really want to go into a story that's going to be home for you for a little bit longer. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think it's just me. I'm not that original. And this one is a great one. The writing, the prose is so beautiful. It's a little bit harder to read when it comes to it. Satisfying in a society very much separated by class. You have orphans that came from the very lowest of the grades and are trained together to manipulate the rich. And we're introduced to them through the main character's backstory, but then we just follow them as a group later. And it's very emotional in parts. You might get mad, but it's filled with turns and twists, and I genuinely just had a really, really good time, and I can't wait to read the second one. I really need to. I'm pretty sure I made an autumnal reads recommendation video a while back, and I am pretty sure this book made a list, but I mean, you really can't argue the point that if you're looking for a story that's going to consume you and welcome you into its home for a couple of days, a story that is told over 3 days in total by a person who is dictating the story to someone in this dark tavern, lit by candlelight, shadows playing everywhere, playing tricks on your mind, and having an unreliable narrator and going on an adventure to a magical university. I mean, the name of the wind. On top of all of that, and having some really great characters, we also have a big focus on music, as the main character is a bard, basically, which I don't think we often do, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but if you want to try something, if you haven't read it already, The Name of the Wind. It truly has this like crisp autumn air vibes to it. So whilst this is a little bit more lyrical and beautiful, poetic, crisp air, we're going to the stale space filled with skeletons and bones and dead things. A beautifully messed up gay romance as well. Gideon the Ninth. I truly never can better describe this than this blurb by Charles Stross. And it says, lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic palace in space. And I'm yet to describe it better, so I'm gonna leave it at that. The last one in this category is actually a dark academia book. It is set in a forgotten, forbidden secret society of Alexandria's library, and we have selected 6 people who are welcomed into the society, but only 5 can continue. Or was it 6 and 7? I'm not sure. There's one too many, basically, and they all have these weird, powerful abilities that they really need to explore and learn to control and just deal better with. And it's a little bit more science-based, so it is considered sci-fi, but it's somewhere in between. And that's obviously Atlas 6. Cozy fantasies. I think this one is not going to come as a surprise because it has made its rounds recently all over social media, and I genuinely did really enjoy it. This is another one that you can definitely read in one evening if you're looking for a little bit of a boost, if you want to just sip your coffee on a Sunday morning in your pajamas and have something of a pastries variety, a croissant or a cinnamon roll, because you will want one. There's so many details about tasty food in this book because the whole premise of Legends and Lattes is that an orc wants to retire from a mercenary role that is kind of pushed upon her just because of how she looks like and her strength. Actually just wants to open a cafe shop, and delicious things follow. It looks bigger than it is because the font is really big. I think the audiobook is like 6 hours total at like 1 speed, and it's extremely cozy. It's low stakes fantasy, and it truly feels like it. Another book in this category for me is Addie LaRue, and I don't know if everyone would necessarily agree with me on this because it definitely isn't cozy in the sense that this is cozy, but it's cozy in the sense that it is very slow. We are talking about our main character who has made a deal with a god and it's backfired as a curse. So instead of marrying this man she really didn't want, now instead our main character lives forever, but she is cursed that no one can remember her name or who she is. Or just her name? I can't remember. It's cozy in a sense that we're following just one person's journey, even though it spans 3 years. We do have some time jumps as well. But it's cozy and slow, and we have descriptions of lazy mornings and dusk and dawn, and because you are not restricted to time running out and you do live forever, somehow that reads even slower, because what is time, So, I will put it here. You can argue with me, but please don't. Let's discuss some staple YA fantasy. Okay, the first one I definitely think will count. We have the Fae Realm, we have Apple Cider, or apple wine. I can't remember, it's been a long time. We do have a lot of like foliage talk and just the general very much magical forest and during autumn vibes, and that is The Cruel Prince. Our sisters from the mortal realm get taken by this king who claims to be their father, and they're taken from their mother to go and live in the Fae realm, where they meet all of the cruel Fae that do not like that they are outsiders, and all sorts of shenanigans happen. This story is about, again, a found family, people who have met through school, people who really hated each other at the beginning but now have a common goal. A girl from a family of psychics that sees a ghost of a person she believes is going to pass soon and now is feeling like it's her responsibility to make sure that person can do it safely, even if she doesn't like them very much currently. And there is a magical forest, again, that is extremely spooky, so it matches that vibe. We have your supernatural elements, and overall, like, this is definitely perfect for autumn, definitely, and it's the Raven Boys. The next one is extremely easy. It was a no-brainer because it actually does take place over your Halloween, the Day of the Dead. But Cemetery Boys is a story about a trans boy who is really struggling in his quite traditional family to be accepted, especially as their family are kind of like a witch family. And unfortunately, those powers are sorted by your gender, and he's really struggling to be accepted into the male side of the family rather than being unfairly assigned the female role to be with like the Brujas. So there's ghosts, there's love, and everything is around the time that the Day of the Dead happens. Another found family book where the characters are absolutely too cunning and too talented for their age, and I've definitely read this with them aged up in my brain, but they beautifully come together in this town and specifically in this area of the city where it's really rough, but they take on a heist that goes all sorts of wrong, and it's obviously Six of Crows. I do think this is another case of very gloomy surroundings, gloomy vibe, everything is bad, but at the same time we have good banter, you know, all the good stuff. And the last one here is a little bit more psychologically unsettling. It's about two best friends who one of them is kind of losing a grip on reality and dragging another one. It's a very codependent, a little bit toxic relationship, maybe a lot toxic. There's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of confusion happening here, and I think it's also extra fun the fact that we go from light pages to dark. The darker the story gets, or the more far away from the reality that we get. And it's called The Wicker King. Next category is somewhat horror. So when it comes to horror books, again, I will direct you kindly to the video where other people recommend you horror reads. I am not the biggest horror reader, but I do want to try more of those. So I only have a couple books here, and you know, some of them are probably like questionable. But let's start with the one that I still haven't finished, but I've read like half before and I'm gonna reread it now this month. But I definitely know this one fits, and it's called The Hollow Places. This is about a woman who after some unfortunate life events goes back to live with her uncle for a bit, who runs this curiosity museum, and within that museum she finds a hole in a wall that leads to something pretty wicked and cursed. It definitely has some body gore. I think that body gore is the category of these three books that I have in this category, but I think the audiobook in UK just came out here as well, so if you were holding off and waiting for that it would be a good time to grab this. And the next one is a haunted house situation where our character is very concerned about her cousin and leaves her family to go and check that out. And once there, she immediately gets really bad vibes from the whole family. It's all very weird, and the house starts making her feel like she's losing her mind as well. And that, of course, is Mexican Gothic. So those two are adult books, but if you're looking for something that is still kind of horror but has more of a YA vibe and something a bit gentler, but still with disturbing images but easy to read. When I did read this, it was many, many years ago, but when I did read this, I do remember thinking how vividly I've seen everything that was happening in the Fae realm. This book is actually set in Ireland, and we follow follow the students that are going to the school that kind of teaches them how to survive when you get the call. The call is when the Fae world actually takes you involuntarily into their realm and then try and hunt you. You have 24 hours to survive, and if you survive, you come back. If you don't, you stay there forever, morphed into some weird thing and existing in just hell. And I thought it was really well done. I will say I never got into reading the second one, and I don't know at this point if I will, but I really enjoyed the first one. I think it stands as a standalone pretty well as well. Okay, last category, I'm almost done. Comics and manga. I could have added more here, but I really wanted to leave the list at 20. I think there's a little bit of a trap with the odd, like, seasonal recommendations, because if I let myself twist it enough, I can pretty much put the same book in all 4 seasons. But if I did have to pick, so the first one I'm going with is Full Metal Alchemist. There is a beautiful adaptation of this, 2 ways actually, so it's your pick too. I think this is great because not only is it finished, but it can offer you equal amount of just extremely uncomfortable stuff and humor and like family coziness. It is an odd combination, but it was one of the first animes that I've seen and then read the manga, and it was great. And then the very last one, which is probably going to be not a surprise for you guys if you've seen my reading vlogs recently, because I've been a little bit obsessed yet again, is my childhood favorite. And I think I am going to use an excuse the fact that the first volume starts on Halloween, or everything kicks off during Halloween. And of course that is Witch. If you want something much lighter, because I know autumn is filled with recommendations of horror and thriller and spooky things, although in this I think we definitely have some cozy stuff as well to counteract that a bit. But if you really just want something that still has monsters but is definitely only meant to possibly scare like a 10-year-old, you will be definitely in good company with Witch. It's really fun and colorful, and there's fairies and elemental magic and all the good stuff. But that then concludes this list. Let me know what your top 3 choices would be, and if you read any of these, and if you're planning on reading any of these. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a very cozy autumn, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!